At 52, I wed Henry, a widower whose quiet strength promised refuge from a loneliness that had shadowed me since my first husband's death. Yet I could not foresee how James, his son, would awaken a forbidden fire within me, threatening to unravel the vows I swore to keep. Our union was not forged in the fires of passion, but in the gentle accord of companionship, a mutual refuge for two souls worn by time. At our age, I believed love should be a still pond, its surface unrippled by the storms of youth. I thought I had tamed my heart, that I could anchor myself in the calm of routine, content with the predictable rhythms of a life well ordered. But life, I learned, is never so compliant, and the heart, no matter how weathered, remains a restless creature, capable of betraying us in the softest, most patches unsuspecting moments. Henry's son, James, was 30 when he first entered my life, a man who bore his father's broad shoulders and steady gaze, but burned with a vitality that Henry had long since relinquished to the slow march of years. James was a lawyer, his world carved out across the city, yet he visited often, his presence like a sudden gust through the staid air of our modest home. His eyes, sharp and alive, held a fire that stirred something deep within me, a spark I had thought extinguished, buried beneath the weight of my years and the vows I had sworn. I told myself it was merely admiration, the natural fondness of a stepmother for her husband's son. But in the fleeting moments, when his hand brushed mine passing a dish at dinner, or when his laughter rang too close, warm and unguarded, my heart betrayed me with a quickening I could not name, a pulse that whispered of desires I had no right to feel. One autumn evening, Henry retired early, his steps slow and heavy, leaving James and me alone in the living room. The fire crackled, casting shadows that danced across the walls like specters of our unspoken desires. I sat with my knitting, the needles clicking in a frantic rhythm to anchor me, but my hands trembled, betraying the calm I feigned. James stood by the window, his silhouette sharp against the fading dusk, his fingers tracing the spine of a book he hadn't opened. The air was thick, charged with the weight of things unsaid, and I felt it, the pull of something vast and perilous, a tide dragging me toward a precipice I could not see but knew was there, its edge both terrifying and magnetic. I wanted to flee, to lock myself away until the feeling passed, but my body refused, rooted to the chair as if bound by invisible chains. My heart pounded, a traitor that mocked my vows, my age, my very sense of self. When James turned, his eyes locked with mine, and the world shrank to the space between us. There was no pretense in his gaze, only a raw, unguarded longing that mirrored my own, a mirror I could not look away from, though it showed me a version of myself I feared to recognize. My breath caught, and I felt the cold weight of my wedding band, a silent rebuke against the fire that surged within me. In that moment, I wanted to erase it all. The vows, the years, the boundaries that held us apart. I wanted to step into the flame, to let it consume me, to know, just once, the reckless, beautiful madness of surrender, to feel the weight of his hands, the press of his breath, the truth of a love that burned too brightly to be contained. He took a step toward me, then stopped, his hands clenching at his sides. The effort it cost him was plain, a mirror to the war raging in my own heart. His jaw tightened, his eyes flickering with a pain that matched my own. And I knew he felt it too, the unbearable weight of a love that could never be, a desire that was both salvation and damnation. I wanted to speak, to shatter the moment with some trivial remark, but my throat was tight with the truth I could not utter, that I loved him, not as a mother should, but as a woman, with a ferocity that shook me to my core, a hunger that left me hollow and whole all at once, a longing that was both my greatest sin and my truest self. Instead, I dropped my eyes, my needles resuming their desperate dance, and the moment slipped away, leaving only a hollow silence in its wake, a void that echoed with the weight of what we had not dared. After that night, James came less often. When he did, he was careful, his smiles measured, his touches fleeting, as if he too feared the spark that flared between us. I told myself it was for the best, that distance would smother the flame, that time would dull the ache. But the longing lingered, a quiet wound that bled in the stillness of my days, a shadow that followed me through the rooms of our home. I saw it in him too, the way his laughter faltered, the way his eyes lingered when he thought I wasn't watching, a silent confession that mirrored my own. We were two souls caught in a dance of restraint, bound by a love that could never be spoken, tethered by a longing that gnawed at us both, relentless in its quiet cruelty, a tide that pulled us under even as we fought to stay afloat. Henry grew frail that winter, his heart weakening with the cold. I cared for him with a devotion born of guilt, each act a penance for the betrayal I carried in my heart. I bathed his fevered brow, read to him in the evenings, and held his hand as he drifted into fitful sleep, all while my thoughts strayed to James. I hated myself for it, for the way my love for Henry, so steady, so true, could coexist with this other, darker love that consumed me. I was torn, a woman divided, loving one man with the quiet devotion of a wife and another with the reckless hunger of a heart that refused to be tamed. When Henry passed, I wept, not only for the man I had loved in my quiet way, but for the life that had kept my heart caged, for the woman I might have been if I had dared to choose differently. James stood beside me at the funeral, his presence a silent strength, but we did not speak of what lay between us. Some truths, I knew, were too heavy to bear the light, too sharp to survive the air, too fragile to withstand the weight of the world. In the years that followed, I lived alone in the house Henry left me, its walls a silent witness to the life I had lived and the one I had not. The rooms felt larger without Henry's presence, the silence deeper, and I filled it with small tasks, mending linens, tending the garden, writing letters to friends who had long since faded into memory. James moved farther away, his visits rare, his letters formal and sparse, each one a wound reopened, a reminder of the distance we had forced between us. I read them by the fire, tracing the lines of his handwriting, searching for traces of the man I had loved in secret. The words were careful, restrained, but I clung to them, parsing each phrase for meaning he may not have intended. I hope you are well, truly well, he wrote once. and I read it again and again, wondering if he knew how unwell I was, how the ache of him had settled into my bones, a quiet companion to my days, a ghost that lingered in the corners of my heart. At 60, my days are quiet, my nights filled with memories that refuse to fade, each one a thread in the tapestry of a life both full and incomplete. I walk the garden where I once fought my desires, the roses now overgrown, their thorns a reminder of the pain that comes with beauty, the cost of reaching for what cannot be held. I think of James often, wondering if he carries the same ache, if he too feels the shadow of what might have been. I imagine him in his city life, his hair now touched with gray, his eyes still sharp but tempered by time, perhaps softened by the weight of his own regrets. Does he think of me, I wonder, in the quiet moments? Does he remember the night we stood on the edge of ruin, held back only by the thinnest thread of duty? Or has he buried it, as I have tried to, beneath the weight of years and choices made, a secret locked away in the deepest chambers of his heart? There are moments when I allow myself to dream, to rewrite the story we never lived. In those dreams, I am younger, unburdened by vows, and he is mine, not as a son, but as a man, his heart open to me as mine is to him. We walk hand in hand through a world that does not judge, our love a flame that warms rather than consumes, a light that banishes the shadows and fills the emptiness I have carried for so long. We laugh, we touch, we speak the truths we never dared, and in that imagined life, I am whole, unbroken by the choices that have shaped me. But dreams are fragile, and reality is a heavier weight. I wake to the silence of my empty house, the creak of its floors, the whisper of its ghosts, and I am alone again, a woman whose heart has outlived her courage. I keep a photograph of Henry on the mantle, his smile a reminder of the man who gave me a home, a life, a love that was steady, if not all-consuming. It is a love I honor, even now, for it was real, and it was mine. Beside it, hidden in a drawer, is a single letter from James, the one with the line I cannot forget. I hope you are well, truly well. It is all I have of him now, a fragile thread connecting me to the love I could not claim, a relic of a moment when the world seemed to pause, waiting for us to choose. I do not know if he meant it as I read it, as a quiet acknowledgement of the thing we never spoke, but I choose to believe he did. It is a small indulgence, a secret kept from the world, like the love itself, a flame that burns in the shadows, unseen but undimmed. The years stretch before me, fewer now than those behind, and I fill them with small joys. Books, the garden, the laughter of neighbors who visit with their stories, their lives a reminder that the world moves on, even when my heart lingers in the past. I knit still, though my hands are slower now, the needles a comfort in their familiar rhythm, a tether to the woman I was. But in the quiet of the night, when the house is still and the fire has burned low, I am his again, if only in memory. I am the woman who loved him, fiercely, wrongly, completely, a woman who stood at the edge of a great and terrible beauty and chose to turn away. That choice has defined me, shaped the contours of my life, but it has not erased him. He is there in the shadows of my heart, a flame that flickers still, unbowed by time, unbroken by duty, a love that was mine, if only in the secret chambers of my soul. Now 60, I dwell in the stillness of a life etched by two loves, one lived in the open, the other hidden in the heart's silent depths. Henry's steady devotion and James's untamed fire wove the threads of my soul. And though I chose the path of duty, the shadow of what might have been lingers, a quiet ache that hums beneath my days. In the glow of memory, I am both the woman who honored her vows and the one who yearned to break them, forever carrying the weight and wonder of a heart that loved too fiercely to be stilled.